All right, folks, welcome to the Overflow Series Day 4. So today we're going to be going into Backend CEO Systems. This is effectively how you can automate, delegate, and create systems that actually buy back your time. The goal of today is to get you, when you're adding in this model, to a state from being reactive to having a system in which you can actually be repeatable. There are a lot of us that are operating with everything inside of our head. And we do have systems, but the systems are scattered across 6 different platforms, 3 different emails. You have a little bit with your admin. You got a lot of stuff inside of your head. And so there's a lot of chaos, and we want to go from chaos to control because the entire purpose of this and adding in another program or adding in another type of self-paced course for you is about taking control back. This is control of your time, control of your business, and control of your day-to-day schedule. That being said, I want to open today's session with a question. And the question is this: if your business were a client, would you be proud of its plan? And I want those of you who are on live right now to actively think of that for a moment. Because when you look at all of the plans that you've created for your clients, they're pristine, you put a lot of effort into them, you know exactly what their nutrition is if you're a nutritionist, you know exactly what the rehabilitation plan is if you're a physio or chiro. You have everything laid down correctly. But the thing is, your business is not laid down that same way. So if you were to pull your plan and compare your business plan, your business operations, your automations, your SOPs, which is standard operating procedures, if you were to actually look at that and assess it like a client's plan, would you be proud of it? Would you say that your business is on the right track? Would you say that it's doing the right things? Would you say that it's got a specific focus in mind, it's very targeted, and it's working towards a singular direction and goal? If the answer is no, then you're just reacting. And like you, I was someone who spent the first 3 years in my business being completely reactive. I had systems, but they were never cohesive. They were always separate, different entities. And every time I brought something on, like a new program, like a new teammate, like a new process, I had to kind of duct tape and sticky tape all of this stuff together in order for it to actually work-ish. And it never truly worked. And the way that I knew that it never truly worked was I was always making an unrealistic amount of adjustments to my process. Sometimes I'd take people through a consultation process and then I'd be like, no, didn't really like how that felt. Sometimes I'd spend a week or two in my emails and then go, no, wait a second, this is something that has to be passed off. And there was always this level of doing things manually. There was no automation. It was still very kind of off the cuff, like sending invoices. Chasing down reschedules was the biggest one. Whenever clients had to move their meetings, even though the appointments were automatically set, anytime there was a last minute cancellation, I found myself manually stepping in and making that shift. Or even something as simple as payment. Checking your invoices to see if people have paid them. It's incredible how many coaches come to me and I'm like, so is your billing automated yet? And they're like, no, we send invoices for each session. And it's like, holy cow, look at how much time you are wasting just checking and seeing who's paid before actually doing the service. To me, this is not growing. You are not growing in this state. You are simply surviving. Your piecemeal put together back-end system knows how to keep you where you are. You can keep the team running fine. You can keep your social and your content going out okay, but it's not actually going to be the thing to scale. And that's because doing it all is what's keeping you stuck. Somewhere in all of your systems, there is still a little bit of you touching every button. You're the one posting on social media. You're the one that double checks the email and sends it. You're the one that's still dipping into the Stripe account or your Practice Better, and you're looking to make sure that everyone got the auto reminders or that people open the email. And that is keeping you stuck because that's all excess hours that's not contributing to your ability to serve and deliver to your clients. When you got into this as a practitioner or a coach and professional, you said two things. I want to serve a bunch of people and I want to make a great living for myself. This limits your capacity to serve, which actually limits the living you can create for yourself. So now we are going to talk delegation. And as we go into delegation, I want you to take a moment to think of, and actually you can drop this in the chat here. You're going to drop a 1, 2, 3, or a 4 as it to where you are operating from. There are 4 levels of operation, and I guarantee you none of you are fully in the reactive state, but there are 4 levels of operation in which people's backends and systems tend to be at. There's the first one, which is reactive. You basically don't have any systems. You're just kind of scrambling from problem to problem, piecemealing stuff, and then something breaks. That's when it's the scramble and you're paranoid because you're locked out of your email account and you're like, holy cow, what's the Canva password? And it's a whole freaking shit show and crapshoot. Maybe some of you are there. If you're not, I hope you're not there because you should move yourself out of that space very quickly. But the second level is the repetitive. I come across a lot of coaches in level 2 and level 3. The repetitive is where you're doing the same thing manually every week. There are still things that even though you could automate or give to someone else, for some reason, either you don't trust those people or you're having a hard time understanding how you can automate it. So things like billing is a big one. You're going into the Stripe account every single month to make sure that the billings were all correct, when in reality, you should never have to look at that type of stuff. Or also your session count. If people have purchased session packages or if you scheduled them in for calls and somehow they've missed your one-on-one appointments, you're still going back in to say, okay, how many more appointments does this person have? That's stuff that you're doing manually every single week. That is stuff that you don't have to. It's incredibly repetitive and it becomes a huge time suck and a huge time drain. The third is documented. When I'm working with a lot of coaches inside Coach to Coach, they come usually in the documented state. This is where they've got templates, they've got checklists, they have SOPs, they know, okay, when a person gets onboarded, they have to do X, Y, Z. When emails get sent out, I have to do it this way. I have templates for being able to deliver my clients' results. They can log into here for this, and there is a system. However, the system is still a little bit repetitive where there may still be tasks on the table that you are not letting go. Normally, this is a trust thing. I was working with a coach last week who said, I'm still looking at my billing. Like I have a really hard time trusting people with invoices. And I said, why? And he's like, well, that's my money. And if a billing or an invoice gets missed, it might be the difference between like whether or not I'm going to make profit that month or not, because he's charging people at $2,500 to $3,500 a month. So I'm like, okay, well, can you create a system that automates the billing, which we did, in which you no longer have to worry about that. And then any missed billing, you just get a single pop-up notification that maybe a payment didn't go through instead of double checking everything that's going on. So you can find yourself in the documented state. We all want to get to level 4. This is the automated and delegated state. You don't touch it, it just happens. I haven't opened my Stripe account, and I still use Stripe because it's easy. I haven't opened my Stripe account in freaking, oh my God, probably like a year and a half. I know it still runs because I see the money come in, but everything else is all set up and my team has that handled where I don't have to be worried about those things. And even if you're someone who is a solo practitioner or you're saying to yourself, well, a lot of these things are things that like I don't have a team yet, or like I'm still in the process of building a smaller one, you can still automate and delegate a lot of the things. Like, are you still editing content? Crazy, because there's AI. Are you still posting and dropping all of your posts on social media? That makes no sense. You can get a VA. There are tons of things that you can automate and delegate, but the question is, are you willing to let go of those things? So in the chat, I want you to drop, and I see some of them already. So we've got 2 2s, we got a 3, beautiful. It doesn't really matter what level you are. Understand that you can continue to ascend and you can ascend very quickly. I tend to look at my business quarterly and I look at my calendar, which is going to be kind of our next step, and I say, what are the things that have been on my plate? And that's what allows me to continue to improve this and change the way that I'm operating month to month and quarter to quarter. So, like I said, kind of alluded to it, what are you still doing? If you're not going to do this here in the session right now, if you're watching this in the recording, pause this and do the calendar audit now. I'm a big believer in taking fast action and doing things in the moment. If you're watching live with me, do it right after the session. Should literally take you 5 minutes, no joke. It's a calendar audit. This is recognizing what you are still doing. And I've got a photo there from January 2023. That was my calendar. I believe I showed it on day one where it was clients, it was call times for consults, it was follow up, and then it was literally from 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. I was completely gridlocked Monday through Friday. Obviously, there was no room for growth there because how could I continue to grow if I couldn't fit anyone else in? So there came a point inside of my business where I had to take a look and say to myself, I don't like the way this calendar looks, number one. Number two, besides the fact that I don't like that I'm spending all of this time being inside of my business, I'm also seeing a repetition or a pattern that is appearing inside of my schedule. It's a lot of clients working one-on-one with sessions. It's a lot of following up with leads or following up with existing clients for certain check-ins or any type of program changes. And it was a lot of consults and sales. Now, don't get me wrong, all of those things are great, but I didn't have any room to grow because look at the amount of fullness that my calendar had. So in this calendar audit, you should be asking yourself some really key questions here. What percentage of your time is spent doing repeatable admin? And I'll tell you something, if you do not block your calendar like I am blocking my calendar now, take the time over the next couple of days and write in hour by hour what you have done with your time. And you will be surprised the percentage of time at the end of those 2 or 3 days that you spend doing repeatable admin. Once I take a look at that, I say, what are any of the tasks that I've done that maybe I could do with a VA or maybe I could do with one Loom video and teach a team member to do this? Because there are a lot of things like tweaking a landing page or putting up a piece of content or editing content that really you don't need to be doing. And these things are relatively inexpensive. A VA or a virtual admin is very easy for you to acquire and source. They're very cost effective and you could have them edit content all day and it's very, very simple. And then of course, what work keeps you in maintenance instead of momentum? There's a lot of things that I call busy work. And we've all heard the term busy work, where it looks like we're doing a lot of stuff, but you spend 6.5 hours creating like a masterclass. And really, you didn't spend any time filling it, or you didn't spend any time sending emails about it. And so no one's really inside it. And you're like, oh man, that really sucks. That's maintenance instead of momentum. Momentum is income and client driving processes. Am I creating more income with this task? Am I finding more people to nurture with this task? And am I providing more value to my existing client base with this task? If the answer is no to all three, then that's a maintenance task. That's not a momentum task. All of this is about consolidating your time. What would change for you if 10 hours came back to you next week of your time? A lot of times when coaches come to me and they start working with me one-on-one, they're saying to themselves, well, I'm really concerned that this is going to take a lot of time. I'm going to join the program. All of a sudden, I'm going to be bombarded with a bunch of tasks that I have to do. And it's going to really overwhelm me because I'm already so full. But the opposite happens where people start to work one-on-one. We shave them an easy 10 hours off the schedule. For most people, it's about 15 to 18 hours. And they're like, holy cow, look at how much time I freed up. And then we take like 3 hours a week to go do the stuff that we need to do. It actually is better for you to do these calendar audits, and it's better for you to take back your time because then you can allot it into income generating tasks, into growing and scaling your business, or into taking a vacation, starting a new hobby, spending time with your family. But we start here. This is what I call the awareness piece. You have to have awareness of where your time is going, just like you have awareness of where your money is going. Every time, and me and my wife do this, we look through all of our expenses. We're like, where do we spend our money? It gives us awareness as to where the money is leaving us. We do the same thing with our time. If we don't audit our time, then it will always escape us, and we're always going to be at the effect of not having enough. Once you audit that calendar, you've got to let these things go. I call this the 3K no-go list. These are the things that you want to start letting go ASAP. So if you're looking at your calendar, this is the stuff that you should really be looking at of all the tasks that you want to let go. First thing is admin tasks. If you're doing anything like manually booking sessions, you're tracking payments and invoices, you're answering general questions for people. Hey, what are your hours of operation? Where's your location? Where's your address? What's it like to book a consult with you guys? All of these things are things that you should be able to absolutely offload or automate. And dealing with emails. There's this crazy inbox zero is what they call it. And it's a crazy statement, period, because there's no such thing as inbox zero. There's always going to be something in your inbox. There's always going to be a client that wants your time, a teammate that wants your attention. The key is not to get to inbox zero. The key is your inbox should only have things that should be brought to your attention that only you can solve. If you're getting everything and anything, of course your attention is going to be scattered because you're like, what do I start? There's personal, there's business, there's client, there's admin, there's marketing, there's content. There's so much that can come in via email. So this is where you have to say to yourself, okay, is there a way that I can put either an email in between me so all the emails go into one place if you're someone who has a small team, or can I get an admin to be that placeholder so I can minimize what comes to me? The next thing is lead chasing and nurture. Lead chasing and nurture is a non-negotiable. You should always be sending out newsletters, emails, creating content, doing ads if you're at that level, like some of our coaches, running organic plays. All of these things come down to nurture. And naturally, when you start putting things like blogs, sending email newsletters and stuff, you're going to get leads come in and inquire about things. As these leads come in, it's not your job to be stuck answering every single conversation for maybe only 20 or 30% of the people who are interested. It's your job to create systems or find people and processes to get rid of that stuff. So things like sending calendar links one at a time for anyone who needs to book a consult with you. That makes no sense. That should actually never happen. So even if you are doing one-on-one consults, there should be a streamlined process where everyone uses the same link and it's very touchless. Reminding people to apply. We have some coaches and practitioners whose group programs or masterminds are very high ticket. So they're charging $2,000, they're charging $3,500, like I said earlier. And so they have an application in the front. We don't remind people to apply. We have systems and processes that do that because we're not desperate. Remember, we're focusing on growing and scaling our business. Even things like following up on DMs and leads manually. There's so many tools with AI and again with VAs that you can do that can follow up with these leads for you. You do not need to be doing this. Where your focus should be is in creating and generating the things that bring in leads and making sure that you're providing value. The last one, this one's very important, low energy delivery. What I mean by low energy delivery is there's a lot of repetition inside the way that you are delivering to clients right now. For example, a lot of the coaches I speak to say the same thing about their check-ins. They're like, I'm talking about the same things. I'm answering the same questions on every single check-in weekly. And then they've got to put in the client notes, and then they've got to update it on a practice better or whatever software you're using. And especially if you were saying the same thing to multiple people, that's low energy delivery that can be automated. There's a check-in form. There could be a group call that can address all these questions at the same time. There's a lot that we can do. And then the same thing, repeating your method 10 times a week. Whenever we're working one-on-one, and this is a callback to yesterday's session. Remember how I said it's so important that you have your method? And I'm a big believer in repetition because I want to hammer this into you guys. When you have a method that you are repeating one-on-one with everyone every single time, you're all taking them through the step one, clean up your food, do your sleep, do these rehabilitation exercises. Anytime you have to repeat something more than 3 times, you can package it. You can package it into a curriculum. You can send them to a place on your website. You don't have to be repeating the same thing. Where your focus should be when you are working with people is answering the questions that your software, your curriculum, or your process can't answer. I don't know if you heard that motorcycle zoom by, but man, it was loud. And it was one of those, those Honda ones that are just like not great. It's like, boom. I hate that. The loud exhaust to me, you're going to find out a lot about me through this process. Loud exhaust to me is one of my greatest pet peeves because it doesn't actually show you have an expensive car. It just shows that your car is very ignorant. So that doesn't to me scream like, hey, I got money. It's like, look at me. So I hear that. I'm like, oh. But anyways, the motorcycle is gone. So we went through repeating the method, fixing scheduling conflicts. So whenever a client has to reschedule or rebook or move, a lot of the times you're in front of the client, they ask it and you say, oh, well, it's easier if I do it right now just with them because it's going to quote unquote save time. Actually, it's not going to save time. It's taking time from another task that you have to do because 9 times out of 10, that's what brings you overtime on your sessions. That's what allows you to basically seep into the next person, or it pushes back the next thing that you have to do. Scheduling conflicts is another thing that you should not be doing at all. It goes to an admin. You do it at the end of the week. You do makeups alternating. There's a process for that. And then I talked about editing content already. I call these low energy delivery because really anyone can do them. Like you don't have to know anything about the client to put together a curriculum that's going to be repeatable. You don't have to do something a specific way different for each person because these things are all very repetitive. They actually require very low energy, but they still take up the same amount of time. These are the things that we work to let them go. Now, as we go into the delegation, I want to let you know that the goal is to delegate, not to dump. A lot of people who have delegated in the past said, I gave it to a team member, it didn't work for the team member. I hired a VA service, it didn't work for them. And so then I had to take it back and now I don't want to give it away again. When you are delegating like a CEO, the goal is to create leverage. So when we delegate, we have to make sure that we have SOPs, standard operating practices available, that we pre-film, hey, this is how it's done, that we have clear expectations and standards for what we're delegating, and that the process is very seamless so it cannot be screwed up. What we don't do is dump. Most coaches who are inexperienced with delegation will dump. They're just like, oh, I don't want to do it because I really hate talking to people about billing. So can you just handle this? Well, yeah, you've given them no expectations. You just sent them on some errand list because you didn't like to do it. And then big surprise, it's going to bite you in the ass. Or even something like, you know what, it's a brand new process. I'm not quite sure how to do it. So I'm going to tell a team member to just figure it out and create a process. Well, they're going to do it the way they think is best, which is never going to be in alignment with you because you're the business owner and what you think is best is different. So again, if we don't communicate the standards, there's going to be a level of frustration on your end, and you're going to end up redoing it anyways. So anytime we dump a task to an automation, to a person, to an external hire, doesn't matter where you're dumping it. If you don't dump it with the right clear expectations, measurable outcomes, and system, then it is going to fail right out the gate. So a CEO has those things. You need clear expectations. This is what I want you to be able to do. This is how I envision the delegation going. And then there's got to be measurable outcomes for that. So just like, for example, if you were to bring on a salesperson and you would say, hey, you have 20 consults this week, I need you to close 10. That's 50% close rate. Cool. You have a measurable outcome as to whether or not they will be successful. So if they're not successful, then you can do things like train, tweak the system, tweak the ads, tweak the process. That's how we continue to adjust and improve. If we don't have any measurable outcomes, then you're not going to know whether or not the thing you dumped is actually happening the way you want it to. And then a repeatable task. I create processes and systems inside of my business, so I'm doing the same way. I'm doing the same thing the same way every single time. Every client gets brought on the same way. Every client gets the same welcome package where, yes, it has their own individual plan and the custom tweaks, but the process is the same. The appointment times are the same. How we communicate is the same. My cutoffs on every single day is the same. And by doing that, I can create a consistent process in my week without there being any variations in my time. So, as we go into delegating, I always recommend you look at automating first. There's a lot that we can automate with softwares, with AI, with VAs, just with even like general things like G Suite or your emails, like different service providers. All of these things can be automated and they can run without you. So that way you can do things like coaching, leading, or even just rest. So when we go into the automation, I recommend you start with these three areas. The first is client acquisition. You should not be doing the applications, creating the funnels, setting the autoresponder, doing the lead nurture. You should not be doing that manually yourself, or your team should not be doing that manually. It's too much work. Remember when we talked about yesterday, if you haven't seen the recording yesterday, go see the recording yesterday. It's about building a system that whether 5 people or 500 people on board, can you accept that in the same week? Well, realistically, 5 to 50. So if I were to hand you 50 people who are ready to start in 2 days, could you do it? If the answer is no, then your client acquisition is not something that you have automated. There is a process that they can go through that can actually make them successful with the self-paced course or make them successful with the group program or the hybrid, whatever you're running. The next thing is onboarding. Whenever we sign someone up, even if we have to do a physical assessment, even if we have to do a discovery call to get their health history, the welcome emails, the pre-work and setup sequence, the access login that they get, the billing emails, those can all be fully automated. There is no reason why you should still be typing in those manually and delivering them individually. Because again, if you had to deliver 50 people's onboarding within the same 2 days, you'd be up until 9 p.m. at night because you're cranking out the same thing over and over again to multiple people. The final thing is pieces of your delivery. This is going to be different for every single practice. For those of you who are doing adjustments, maybe you're like, no, I really like adjustments. I want to be the person to do them. For some people who are like, no, you know what? I've actually outgrown the delivery piece. I want to bring on a coach. I want to bring on a trainer, another person. Delivery will change, but what I recommend and what I've seen works well with the coaches and practitioners we work with is when we're automating the delivery, it's about having scheduled delivery blocks. So clients aren't all over the place in our day. They're back to back in streamlined blocks where I can control if I am doing the delivery and I can automate that. The next thing is content in the client's portal or the system. Anytime we go to build a curriculum for someone inside a C2C or the Overflow upgrade that I was talking about yesterday, all of this can be very streamlined where if you want to upload a new video, if you want to upload a new piece of content inside of your course, it should be 2 or 3 clicks and done. Not now I have to create a whole page and then I have to play with the wording and the colors. That takes too much time. So especially if it's something you're going to be repeating over and over again, we can automate that. And then, of course, the check-ins and the reminders. These should be things that are going out automated. And for most of you, they're already automated, which is great. But it's like if you don't have that automated, you should, because these are things that are repetitive that are going to keep appearing in your business over and over again. We automate this first, and we stop doing this first. 2 firsts, I guess. You do this at the same time. The equal firsts, I suppose. You do this because this is going to give you back easy 10 hours, 20 hours, no problem in your day to day, or in your week to week, sorry. because all of these tasks are tasks that you're not realizing that you are stepping into or that you're spending too much time on because you feel you have the time. And then later on, you complain that you don't and you're always short on time. Now, let's go into who you bring in. If you're at the stage like some of our coaches are, where you're like, okay, look, I want to actually hire Lite. I want to bring people in. I will say this, you don't need a big team. You need smart support. People can do multiple roles as long as you give them the operating practices and the standards to do that. So if you have team members, they should be creating their own content if they want to fill their schedule. If you have admin, they can also post the stuff on social media as long as you give them the content as well as doing admin. So you don't need a big team. You just need to understand who is capable of doing what. So when you're hiring, there's kind of hiring in three categories as to who you should bring on first. So we hire for things that don't directly make money. So any type of admin, any type of scheduling, any type of tech troubleshooting, billing, we hire those out first because those are tasks that take a significant amount of time that do not generate income. We only want to be focusing on income generating tasks or visionary work because that's where you have a shit ton of fun and that's where you fall in love with your business. The next thing is we hire for what doesn't deepen client results. So this is where companies like VAs or individual VAs, if you already have one, is really, really great. Things like uploading PDFs, setting up Zoom links or making sure that your call schedule is working, answering surface level questions, maybe booking your consultations or doing pre-qualification if you're running a self-paced course or a group program. That stuff doesn't deepen a client's result. In going through that process, it's largely just kind of the back end, what I call dirty work that is kind of boring and is pointless. It's needed to be done because we need to pre-qualify, we need to upload the PDFs, we need to give them their plans, but anyone can be told to do that and be directed to do that very quickly. This can be the same person for both as the admin, or you can have someone exclusive to that, especially if you have several coaches or starting to build a team under you. Third one is what keeps you from vision work. I am a big believer that as a business owner, the less vision work you do, the more stalled of growth in your business you become because you are the steersperson in your ship. If you think of it like you have the Titanic and know your boat's not going to sink, okay? You have the Titanic because I want you to envision size. You are steering top deck. You see the icebergs, you see the challenges in front of you. You also see the goal and the destination. But all of the people who work for you underneath inside the boiler room and they're in the engine room doing the back end stuff to make the ship run, they don't see the vision. They're not on the upper deck. They don't understand what is in front of them. So if you say we have to do X, Y, and Z and add this program because I see an iceberg and I'm pivoting, you have to be able to communicate that. You actually need to have the vision to be able to stay on top deck and see these things that are coming. Most of the coaches get into that maintenance zone where they're dealing with problems or challenges in their business, iceberg after iceberg. Once they get hit with one, the next one starts looming in and then comes, and they're being very reactive. And what happens is your team becomes very reactive. So we want to hire for things that keep you away from the vision work. You want to focus on the long-term stuff. So for an example, planning new offers. You don't need to be the person who plans your new offer. Sorry, you can trust your team to do that. Long-term nurture. Anyone can write a compelling email, especially if someone has heard you speak or they're around you long enough. Any team member that has been in your world for more than 6 months can probably write a piece of content that speaks a lot like you or can speak to your audience because they see you in the work every day. And if you're a practitioner who's just a solo practitioner right now, long-term nurture is things like using AI and teaching it by creating content with it. So that way, when you start creating more and more content, it learns your voice more and more. It starts to understand what your audience is looking for. And then it actually starts to help you generate new ideas. And it can start to make nurture long-term easy for you. Strategic content. Again, you don't have to be the one planning your marketing calendar. You can have team members do that. And then partnerships and visibility. Things like networking should be one of the first things in terms of hiring. If you hire someone, you get that person to do networking for you because they don't need to know how to do the coaching or how to be the practitioner. They just need to know how to talk about your business. So that way it can free up your time, again, to do the things that make you money. I'm going to hammer this over and over again. Do the things that make you money, then you're going to make more money and you're going to have more financial freedom. That allows you to buy back your time. After we've hired this person, we've delegated, we've automated, we want to be able to check and see how our progress is. I always recommend that people have kind of a CEO dashboard. These are the bare minimum that need to be on your CEO dashboard. It's the only 3 weekly metrics that matter for scalable business for practitioners. And it's the following: new leads. You need to know how many aligned people are entering your world, your conversion rate, how many of those people moved from interest to an application or who bought your program, and you need to know your retention rate. You need to understand how long your clients are staying in your world. There is the bare minimum, and I've got a picture there showing our metrics daily, and we don't look at it weekly. We look at it daily because it's very important. That way I can have more time to pivot a lot quicker. And we also give this same system to the coaches that work with us because, again, you need to be able to start looking at this. But a lot of practitioners that I'm speaking with, even at the 20 to 30K a month level, still do not understand their conversion rate and their retention rate. They say, "Oh, clients stay with me forever." But then when I look at it, I'm like, they stay with you for the first program and then you have a 60% retention. Are you okay with that? And they're like, "No." Cool. Or even something like conversion rate. Do they convert from the self-paced program to the group program? Do they convert from the group program to the one-on-one experience? That is all relative to your systems and your process. This is how we make decisions. Whenever we are looking to build a business and fix it to make it stronger or better, we always work top down. So for example, if someone goes, "Man, I'm not getting enough sales." Well, are you getting enough leads? Cool. If you're getting enough leads, are you converting them? No. Okay, cool. You have a conversion issue. If not, if you're getting the leads and you're converting them, are you keeping them? It's the same 3-step process, which is why you need to have these as 3 bare minimum metrics for yourself and for your team. Share them with your team. I will say this and write this down or drop it in the chat, folks. Forgetting about the chat, drop it in the chat, folks. CEOs don't chase numbers. They don't chase numbers. They watch the right ones. Remember, these are just numbers. One low one day doesn't matter. One high one day doesn't matter. You're just using it to make an educated decision. So just like if we look at content, we see that there was one video that got 500,000 views. Well, of course, we're going to make more content like that. If there's some type of a program that gets 200 leads versus one that gets 10, what's the next thing you're going to build? Probably a program that's going to be similar, right? So this is why we want to have these as a dashboard. Now, as you go through this, the automation, the delegation, you've probably tried to do this, like most of the coaches who work with us, you've tried to do this by yourself. You've already tried to bring on teammates. You've already tried to automate things, but the system was too clunky. Maybe the teammate didn't end up working out. You brought on a VA. You may have even hired a marketing company or one of those like MLM companies to go through and run your ads for you and do these different things because you've tried to pass it off. And whether it was the wrong person, wrong time, not a great system, not a good communication of SOPs, whatever it was, it didn't work for you. So you're like, this is why I do it all myself. And I start taking back like that poorly generated AI with all the wrong facing arms. You start pulling everything back into your world and you say, it's mine now. We have to let some, and this is actually from a client. This isn't from me. And I share this with tons of people. One of our clients inside of Coach to Coach, he's got a team of 16 and he does $3.2 million a year in his business. And when we were talking about allowing people to fail and putting out fires, he says, in a forest, you let some fires burn because it creates clearing and that allows for new growth. You don't have to put out every fire. You don't have to be the person that has to take all of this on. You think you do because it hasn't worked once or twice like a lot of the coaches that have worked with us. And I want to share kind of a story with this because there is this. Let me unshare here so that way you can kind of see my face. So there's a story of two clients who I encountered at the same time. They both became clients, but one of them met me, decided 6 months later to become a client, and the other one met me and became a client within a 1 to 2 week period. And I share this because this comes back down to the automation, the delegation, and trust. Trust in yourself, trust in your team. There's actually 4 layers of trust, and I've got a podcast on it. I'll tag it in the YouTube video too. But you got to trust yourself, you got to trust your team, you got to trust source or God. I'm a big believer in God, and you have to trust life. If you do not trust those 4 things, delegating and automating stuff you're going to have a hard time. So with both clients, we had the consultation within the same week. It was like a 2 or 3 day span apart. And I remember sitting down with the first person and they were telling me about all the teammates that they brought on that were not working. And I said, well, how are your systems and your SOPs? And they were like, well, I have the SOPs, but I'm always changing them because they're not working, because the people aren't working. And so everything that I kept hearing was it was clunky, it was not working, it was ineffective, but there was a hesitation to let it go. And I said, well, are you the one creating the SOPs? Yes. Are you the one doing the lead nurture? Yes. Are you the one still doing the sales calls? Yes. So they were doing everything. And I said, well, how do you expect someone to get better at this if you don't trust and let them do? And they were like, that's fair. And as we were going through the conversation, put a pin in that convo, I'm simultaneously having a conversation with a client or a future client who's going to be another client. And they're having conversations with me saying, hey, I'm really anxious. I have this team. They're doing really well. I still feel caught in one-on-one. I'm looking to fill their schedule now. How do I grow past this? And I said, okay, how's your systems? How's your processes? And it was rapid fire documents and rapid fire. I have this for them, this, and this. And I was like, I know that this person is in a ready state because regardless of all of the things that were clunky, they continued to document, write down, improve, and look at their CEO dashboard to move. So now that person who had that internal CEO dashboard, when we went in to the coach to coach program and we said, here's the way that we're going to help you. Here's how we're going to take you past the 30K months. They said immediately, hey, I can see how this is going to work inside of my process and I'm going to take it and I'm going to go. Now, the other person who had all of the systems in their head really struggled to see how it was going to fit because they did not understand their own systems and processes. And this is where you can be stuck for 5 months or 6 months or a year in this land of, do I need a mentor? Do I need a coach? Should I hire a VA? Do I work with a marketing company? Do I get someone to run ads? Because the reality is your back end is a mess. It's a mess. It's all inside your head and you don't even know what you need. So naturally, when that person had the conversation with me, they were like, I can't see how this is really going to fit. So we're going to stay connected and in touch. Not a problem. 6 months later, I do a check-in that's absolutely scheduled because again, I'm a systems guy. And they're like, hey, we're starting today with you. And I was like, oh, that's a big change. How come? They were like, well, I recognize that I've spent 6 months trying to figure out what I've wanted for my business. Not sure if I want to still stay one-on-one, if I want to run a group program, if I want to run a self-paced program, if I want to transition into an online space. And I'm wasting a lot of time, energy, and money on this. And I'm done. I'm absolutely done. Both of them reached a place of certainty, but only one of them had the foresight to work towards things to create certainty. And that was the person who ended up signing up right away. And I share this because especially, bring this back here, there's 3 things that when you look at what is the real value, there is a significant amount of value that we don't realize in time, energy, and money, especially time we've lost, energy we won't get back, and money that we burned because we made mistakes. And I say you can't get these things back because we cannot reverse any of those things. Sure, we can create more energy for ourselves. Sure, we can continue to open up our schedule for our time, but days have gone, energy has been lost, and money has been burnt because there were opportunities that you didn't seize. Each and every one of these things carries something that's very important. When it comes to time, think about the hours you'll never recoup from fixing broken funnels. Think about the weeks you've lost trying to DIY a launch that never got off the ground for that self-paced program or that group program. Think about the months you stayed fully working with people one-on-one, but it stalled your growth. And every session you were like, man, I'm caught in this day to day. Think about the content you never posted because the system wasn't ready and you didn't really have a content strategy or a marketing calendar, and there was really no purpose to your content. That's time you'll never get back. That's time that you save by creating a system and by trusting others to be able to do this stuff for you. Now let's talk about freaking energy. How about the decision fatigue from trying to think about like, how am I going to figure this all out? I mean, I spent 3 years in that energy and it was stressful as hell. And you know what? It ends up becoming the emotional burnout from doing it all alone. You're the one making decisions. You're the one trusted to do everything. You're expected to put out every fire. And that gives you a mental load. There's the mental load that exists of constantly switching roles. You're switching from practitioner to coach, from coach to marketer, from marketer to admin, from admin to tech. And then this is where that exhausted, man, I'm just going to do it tomorrow. I'm going to put out the self-paced course tomorrow. I'm going to do the group program tomorrow. That's where the feeling comes day after day. It appears and it starts to creep up. But the money, man, the money. I'm a big fan of Kevin O'Leary, not for his attitude, but for the way that he treats money. Like money is like a child that like when it burns and it and it disintegrates, you're like, holy cow, you'll never get it back, right? Just like the benefit of compound interest. Think about the missed sales from leads who were ghosted because there was no funnel. You didn't have a funnel and you just never followed up with the lead. Think about the delayed revenue from waiting to launch that scalable offer. All you've given them was one-on-one, and every time someone said no to your one-on-one, or they left a consult saying, I need to think about it, you were like, I missed and lost an opportunity. Think about the money you're wasting paying for tools, VAs, and templates that actually never got implemented. They're there inside your Google Drive somewhere, but they just never got implemented because you didn't have the time. Think about the times where you stayed stuck in K to 10K months or hovering around the 20K to 30K a month revenue when 50K, 100K is possible, was possible then, even in that moment. Now, I don't want you to shed an imaginary tear for these things that you can't get back because this is where recognition comes into play. And this is why I created the Overflow upgrade. The Overflow upgrade is not just this thing where we hop into your business and do this stuff for you. Anyone can do this stuff. It exists to give you your time, energy, and income back with a system that is built for you, not just by you, for your new model. Making sure that we're looking through, what are we doing? Is it going to be the self-paced course? What's going to be the curriculum? Is it going to be the group program? For the offer, how do we launch this offer to your existing audience, to past clients, to your socials? Are we going to run ads to it if you're ready to run ads? So that way the offer gets filled and it gets filled without you having to worry about it in a very short time. To the new systems where we start going through the back end, your content, the copy, your landing pages, your email sequences. So these are things that we know are working well and working right the first time. And then, of course, your team and your processes where the SOPs are generated for you for your business. So as you start becoming that person who can bring on new people, you know who to bring on, where to bring them on, and when to bring them on. All of these things are things that can happen when you join the Overflow upgrade. This program is completely different than coach to coach. And I want to share with you guys the personal reason why I built the Overflow. We were coming across so many coaches inside of C2C whose businesses were building. And as we were giving them 20 leads, 50 leads, 200 leads, we start bringing more and more people to them, and their systems started falling apart like a house of cards. And I was like, holy cow, I never realized how much of the stuff in the back end was piecemeal. I never realized how many of you are so caught in the trade time for money that when you start having the ability to make more money, you actually can't take that money on. And this is where these people were saying, hey, can you turn the ads off? Hey, can we maybe slow down the social media promotion? Hey, is there a way that maybe we can push our launch date? And I was like, holy cow, they're so overwhelmed and the systems in the background are falling apart because it's not together. It's not congruent. It's not uniform. There's no connectivity. So, of course, I said to myself, that can't happen. It can't happen because the one thing that you want is to continue to build your business while giving you back more time. And that's the whole purpose of it. You need to be able to take your time back in a space where, as you continue to have more and more time, you make more money, which you're saying to yourself, how is that even possible? You're saying I can work less and make more, but also help more people. Yeah. Yeah. And it took me running my first online program, group hybrid, to do that, where we had 220 applicants in the first 2 weeks. And I was like, holy crap, that's double the capacity of my facility at that time. And I was like, wow, this is wild, but it's possible. And it's possible for so many of the coaches who work with us and so many of the practitioners who continue to grow. How do you think that coach with a team of 16 at $3.2 million, how do you think he grew? He grew by operating the same way, by knowing that he had the model, the new offers, the new systems, and the teams and processes to play. So through this, book your discovery call. We'll walk you through what's involved in the program. We'll go through your business to see how we're going to be able to specifically help you with this. And if this is something that is a good fit for you, amazing. Then we'll get you fired up right away ASAP so that way you can roll in and have this offer before year end. Because why wouldn't you actually get the upstart now than doing it later? Remember, there's only 4 spots for this. And we're starting to get calls booked. And obviously, calls booked don't mean spots are filled. Spots are filled with signups, but don't miss the opportunity because we do have limitations per quarter. Because when my team dives into your business, we're all in and we're serious about it. It's not like one person with like a stick, not one person with a stick that's like, I'm going to throw this in here. It's going to gum up the gears. It's going to work perfect. No, like we are bringing in all of these processes, the SOPs, to make this work seamlessly for you. So go to growmycoaching.com/overflow upgrade. From there, you can apply and book a call with us, or you can DM me on Instagram or LinkedIn, the word upgrade. When you DM me the word upgrade, I'm going to send you the link. So that way, of course, you can hop on as well too. We've crushed it. We have crushed 4 out of the 5 days. We've crushed 4 out of the 5 days of the Overflow series. Scalable client delivery, showing you how to convert from the 101. The Overflow offer stack, going through what to sell. Backend CEO systems today, and the final day tomorrow is going to be the CEO activation plan. And I'm going to leave that a surprise because it's going to be absolute fire. In between now and then, book your call. You have until September 15th to book the call for the Overflow upgrade. And when you do, you will get access to 2 bonus programs. You will get access to client converting content, which helps you create content that attracts more organic leads naturally to your socials. And you will also get access to the Fast Launch program. This is the program and the framework we use to be able to launch any offer within a 30 to 60 day period, and it doesn't matter what it is. Showing you how to ramp up the content, showing you when to do the promotions, showing you the call outs, and showing you how to package the offer so you can keep doing this. Because this isn't going to be the only thing that you build. Maybe I should say that. Surprise, it's not going to be the only offer that's being built. You're not just going to build one group and that's it. You're not just going to create one self-paced course and you're like, I got nothing else for you. No, people are going to start asking for other things and you're going to start building multiple things. So if you join before September 15th, you get access to two of those programs. It's a $5,000 bonus on top of that I'm literally putting into there because it's just too valuable to not give it to you guys. So even stuff like but I don't know how I'm going to run the content, easy. But what happens after this offer, easy. It's all in this process. You will have access to all of it. Now, at this point, this is where, like always, I've already unshared. We are going to open up for questions.